Okay, so I'm going to talk about the PROMOTE study, which is a study to look at quality of life and communication needs with children and young adults that have had brain tumours. I work with Professor David Walker at the Children's Brain Tumour Research Centre, and the study is funded by the Brain Tumour Charity. So, what have I done? Sorry. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, so as you're probably all aware, life can be quite different for children and young people after a brain tumour. And at the moment, there isn't a routine way of asking about changes post-treatment. So children get better and they go home, and we don't collect data in a routine way. So the study that we're carrying out is to try and find out if we can introduce a way of doing that that's helpful, both in recording what happens and also in increasing quality of life for these children. So the study is based on something that's already happening in Holland called CLICK. And so all children that are treated in children's hospitals in Holland use this method of communication. So before they go for a follow-up consultation, they fill in an online questionnaire, and the consultant sees that a couple of days before the child goes in, and it alerts them to any issues that are important and that they need to talk about. So these are things like school and how well they're feeling, how they're feeling emotionally, and any issue that could be important for quality of life. So this is a study that's being carried out at 3 different centres. So there's Nottingham, Great Ormond Street Hospital, and Southampton Children's Hospital. And we've just finished the development phase of the study. So at each of the 3 centres, we've interviewed 6 families, and we try and interview the children and their parents separately because we think that gives them both the space to talk and say things that they might not feel comfortable saying in front of each other, but that doesn't always work. And the youngest children we've interviewed are 8 and the oldest are 17. So we've got a good age range. And although I do know the condition that most of the children have had, it's not really important. I like to go and meet the families without knowing much about them, so I can sort of meet them fresh, if you know what I mean. So we've interviewed the families for the first part of the study, and we've showed them the website, the CLICK website, and we've talked to them about communication issues and about their quality of life, and we've asked them which questionnaires they like, and people said that they liked more straightforward questions, they liked ones that were easy to answer and didn't take long, but there were also some missing questions. So there were the PEDSQL, which was the most commonly chosen questionnaire some of you might be familiar with. It didn't ask about some issues which families told us were important. So they were things like memory, communication problems, worries about fertility, that sort of thing. Like most children and young people, they had nice lives, most of them. They had sports they enjoyed, they went on nice holidays, they enjoyed being with their families and their friends. But they told us things had changed for them after their treatment. So sometimes they couldn't go back to playing the sports that they used to play. They struggled at school, memory was a problem. For some children, friendships were a lot more difficult since they'd been ill, and doing well at school was more challenging, and they struggled with having low energy when they were at school, not being able to complete their homework, and finding it hard to get around school was quite a common problem. So they're the sort of things that they told us. When the children spoke about their consultants, they were really positive. They felt that they gave them lots of information. They enjoyed going back to see their consultants. And they didn't have any problems talking to them, but I think one of the things that we realised was there were a lot of issues that the children just didn't think were relevant to speak to their consultants about. So sometimes they would say, it didn't occur to me that I could talk to the doctor about what was happening at school. Another thing children told us was because they forgot things easily, often they just let their parents talk for them because they were worried they'd forget to say stuff, so they just let their mum and dad talk for them. Some children said that they would really like the chance to speak to their doctor on their own. And we realised that was because sometimes the kids didn't want their parents to worry about them worrying, if that makes sense. And the opposite was also true. Sometimes the parents wanted a chance to speak to the consultants about the child, but they didn't want to ask difficult questions in front of their child, and they also didn't want to say, can I see you on my own, because they thought the kid would just know that there was something worrying them. So that was quite interesting. So the sorts of things that young people wanted to talk about were whether the cancer would come back, whether their fertility had been affected, whether their memory would improve and come back. And then more practical things like, is it okay to start playing rugby again? How far should I push myself with sports? And a lot of worry about weight and fitness and that sort of thing. So here's a couple of quotes from two different children. One of them is describing his frustration about when he comes out of a consultation, and he just couldn't remember what he wanted to say. And the other child is talking about how they just didn't think it was a suitable thing to speak to their doctor about. So when we showed the families the CLIC website, they really liked it because they thought it would help them to remember things. That was probably the most important thing. So they could write it down whilst they thought about it. They could just put it into the website. And then parents in particular were interested in the fact that they could track their child's progress over time. So they could see from one 6-month appointment to the next how their child had changed or improved. They also thought that if you found it difficult to talk, or you were shy, or you had a communication issue maybe after surgery, that it would help because you could just type it, or you could take your time to talk with your parents about what you wanted to say. And also some young people thought that communicating in this way would mean they could ask questions that were a bit embarrassing or awkward, and they wouldn't feel so overwhelmed at having to say them out loud in front of maybe 2 or 3 people in a consultation. And people also recognised that if they got the chance to speak to read the answers, the questions a little while before the consultation, that the doctors might have a chance to think about the answers, or even to think about a referral or another possible way to help the family. So the next step is to carry out a feasibility study in each centre, and we're looking for 15 families to take part, and this will involve the families actually completing the questionnaires online, and we've also added a few prompts. So we asked specifically about issues like, is anything else worrying you that you'd like to talk about? How are things at school? So we've asked some extra questions, and we're going to see if it works, and then we're going to get feedback from the consultants and the families to see how it's gone. So if you're interested in finding any more, drop me an email. Thanks for listening.